and then once it got into the Pearl River Valley, it completely wiped out bananas in the Guangzhou area around Old Canton. It's spread widely now throughout China, and the Chinese people now are trying to continue growing Cavendish bananas because Cavendish is a popular banana in China, but they've run out of non-contaminated soil, so they've gone into Laos and Vietnam and Thailand and Burma, some of these other areas of contaminated soil with these traditional seed pieces. So it's on the move.
Yeah, and so when you said that isolate, so is that a kind of, sorry, you're going to have to forgive my lack of biological understanding here, but is that a kind of, is that just like a few cells of the fungus, or is it kind of a bit of an infected plant?
Yeah, it's actually the fungus itself, yeah. So they sent me the fungus itself. And the fungus itself, it produces something called colidospores, and these spores of the fungus are very resilient. So they get in mud and water and that sort of thing, and they're these little reproductive packages of the fungus that are really easily moved from one area to another. And we're pretty sure that this is how it moved from Southeast Asia to Western Asia to Africa now, and it's probably just a matter of time before it jumps the Atlantic and comes over here. So that's the sad note.
How small are these little kind of reproductive packages you're talking about? Would I be able to see them?
Oh, they're microscopic.
Oh, really?
No, they're microscopic. Yeah.
Is it the case?
So you'd have to put them under the microscope.
I was going to say, is it the case that you kind of like get one of those and a little bit of soil, and that's really all you need? One of this almost indetectable particle.
Yes, yeah, it's indetectable. Yeah, so it's going to be, unless you're using these sophisticated genetic techniques to determine that that soil or that machinery or that knife is contaminated, you don't know. You can't see it.
Yeah.
Infected seed pieces, traditional suckers, I mean, they look healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how the disease spread widely way back in the Gros Michel area, is that they were using infected seed pieces to reestablish this Gros Michel way back in the day, and eventually the pathogen would spread within that plant, would kill that plant, and then spread within the plantation. And this is what's happening with TR4 now.
When you say seed
it gets
pieces,
established in an area.
Is a seed piece the same as a sucker?
A sucker, yeah. So it's botanically it's a rhizome, but a sucker, and suckers are used traditionally then to move planting material around, and this is what's happening in Southeast Asia right now. We think for Western Asia, though, Israel, Jordan, where else has it been found over there? Lebanon, and into Mozambique, we think that instead of infected seed pieces, infected suckers, what's happened is people have brought in, muddy boots and that sort of thing to move it.
And actually, sorry, going right back to what you were saying at the beginning, when you were assembling this worldwide collection you were talking about, was that of all different types of banana pathogens, or was it specifically looking at different types of palmitodes?
Specifically this, so the permit I had was specifically for this pathogen. So I was interested in, this pathogen is got a long and nefarious history. So to understand that history, I wanted to get a collection of the pathogen from around the world and determine where did it come from, how did it move, and using these genetic subpopulations of the pathogen gave us a good, quick way of sorting out that history, basically.
And what is that? As far as I understand it, is it that TR4 had been in the soil in Southeast Asia for as long as we can guess? Do you have much sense of the kind of genetic lineage of it? That's our best guess. Yeah. So the question is, well, how did it spread from Taiwan to Southeast Asia? Well, we think it actually originated in Southeast Asia, where banana evolved. This is a co-evolved pathogen, so it evolved with banana, and banana evolved in Southeast Asia. And then somehow it got from Southeast Asia up to Taiwan, and Taiwan just happened to be the first place where we detected this. They were growing Cavendish monocultures up there before they were growing them in Southeast Asia. They had been growing Cavendish bananas in Taiwan for many, many years. They had a really lucrative export trade set up with Japan,
And because of that long history, they had problems with this on Cavendish for many years. And it's only after they started growing these Cavendish monocultures in Indonesia and Malaysia then that this thing, it was like, wow, it's all over the place.
Yeah. And actually, let's kind of go back. I mean, I'm interested could you talk to me a little bit about how TR4 affects the plant? Maybe from the starting point, how does it kind of get into the roots? Can you talk to me a little bit about the kind of biological process that's going on there?
Yeah, so it's a soil-borne fungus. So it's, let's say, start out with that chlamydospore that comes off someone's boot, let's say, and it sits in the soil, and it's going to go ahead, that chlamydospore is going to germinate in the presence of a susceptible host, banana. So the banana roots that it's going to infect exude amino acids and carbohydrates, and it goes, oh, I can smell or I can detect that there's a food host here. It then germinates and it'll infect that root, and then if it's a susceptible banana, the infection process will go systemic within the plant. It'll get into the xylem, the water-conducting, the nutrient-conducting vessels within the plant, and will go systemic. And what it does then is it induces structures in the xylem that are called tyloses, and they end up their reaction to infection by this pathogen, but in susceptible ones, it's a little bit too late for the process to wall it off. So in resistant ones, let's say Cavendish and Race 1. Cavendish is resistant to Race 1. It'll wall off that pathogen and it can't go systemic. Right. In Gros Michel, though, Race 1 goes systemic, goes willy-nilly through the plant, and then it's a plugging the entire plant up. So it's a vascular wilt disease. The infected, susceptible plant that is unable to wall it off, it goes systemic, and then it eventually cannot conduct water and nutrients, and it dies of nutrient starvation and also of inability to conduct water. So this is what's happening now with TR4 and Cavendish, is it's as susceptible to TR4 as Gros Michel is to Race 1.
And when you're saying it's kind of like systemic, so the kind of the kind of image I'm getting is that it almost like blocks up those tubes that would be conducting nutrients and water and stuff, so it can't get anywhere.
Exactly, yeah. So it's useful to think of the xylem as just a series of pipes.
Right.
So they're pipes from the soil that are conducting that water and nutrients out of the soil into the canopy of the plant. And when those pipes are occluded then with these tyloses that are induced by the pathogen, the pipes don't work anymore.
Sorry, how do you spell tyloses?
Tyloses is the plural.
Brilliant, cool. I just wanted to...
Tylos is singular, tyloses is plural.
Got it. And so how long does it kind of generally take from first contact with a root to the plant being, well dead?
Well, again, this is all these initial processes. You can't see them because the initial infection, the plant looks healthy, but so our best guess out in the field is 2 to 9 months. We know that we can induce a disease in the greenhouse situation in a matter of weeks, but in the soil in the field, it's probably 2 to 9 months. It's fairly quickly, but then by the time you see a plant that's got symptoms of this disease, it's probably infected surrounding plants, and that it's a cryptic infection that is really dangerous because you don't know how far the pathogen's gone. Has it moved downstream? Has it moved on someone's boots to another field? Don't know.
And actually, I wonder, I mean, with that in mind, I mean, so talk to me a little bit about your experience of seeing plantations where this has been, where TR4 has kind of taken hold. What does a plant that has been killed by TR4 look like?
Actually, it's going to be a plant here and there, and this is a danger in the Americas, is that initially it's going to be a plant here and there, and something else killed this plant. So by the time you've got this thing spreading from that initial plant or two to big pockets of damage, the horse is out of the barn. But what you're going to see are these what are called disease foci. It's basically this is contagion, and that initial plant or two is going to develop disease plants around it, so that you've got these pockets of plants that are then diseased. Eventually, by the time it becomes noticeable, you've got big pockets all over the plantation. And that's the difficulty then is you probably got the pathogen spread pretty widely in that plantation and perhaps to other plantations. So this is, for example, the situation now that the people are facing is that they've the TR4